This is the new LEGO Star Wars Coruscant Guard gunship. An overall decent set with one glaring flaw: the side doors. As we all know, this version of the Republic gunship actually comes with two doors, one that shifts backwards and then one that shifts forward, like we saw with the 2008 set. But this version of the Republic gunship only has one massive door that swings back. And it's super strong and sturdy, but the downside is I can barely get my hand into the back half of that minifigure space. In fact, you can hardly tell that I actually have a third minifigure in there, and this is as far back as the door goes. So the only easily accessible portion of the minifigure space is up at the front here, and for a troop carrier, that's rather inconvenient. So today, after using a handful of extra parts, we're taking a look at my two-door Coruscant Guard Republic Gunship mod. And as always, if you want to do these mods, I have PDF building instructions plus an extra parts file available on my Patreon page right now. And in order to do these mods, we're actually going to have to peel off the original door plus some Technic pieces from the original set. So I'll show you how to do that now. So in order to get this door detached, plus all the Technic pieces behind it so we can use them later, first we're going to push down on this Technic bar at the front to remove the front half of the door. And once you have this pushed out, make sure you take out this little Technic pin with it because we're going to need this later. Now at the back of the gunship, we need to get this cluster of Technic parts out of here, so first we're going to remove that brown Technic axle. Now once you have that axle pushed up, go ahead and pull on this Technic piece here and remove this entire assembly. So now you should have this entire door assembly taken off, plus all these Technic pieces on the back side. And then this is what the gunship should look like after you peel off the door. And now that we have our doors taken off, go ahead and disassemble this and combine it with your extra pieces, and we're ready to build our two doors. And after that little bit of building, we now have our two-door Coruscant Guard Republic gunship. And despite breaking apart one door to make two doors, all these exterior details like your white stripes and these clear tiles for your windows are all in the exact same place as the original set. So you don't have to be worried that this mod is going to compromise the exterior look and design of the Coruscant Guard ship. And to make this a little bit easier to see going forward, I'm going to go ahead and remove this wing so we can get some easier shots of the interior and the doors themselves. And in case you're wondering, the easiest way to get the wings off is to grab something that can push into this Technic pinhole to remove that gray axle. I'm using a spring-loaded shooter because it's what I had next to me, but you can really use any Technic axle or Technic pin. And after pushing that axle, it's going to be sticking out of the back side. Before you remove it, make sure you grab onto your wings so it doesn't just fall off, and then you can easily access your doors. And the front door, of course, shifts forward, revealing our Commander Fox inside. And then I've got a few ingots with plenty of tiles going around the top and bottom half of the door, with a 2x6 to attach those clear tiles that make up the windows. And unfortunately, LEGO doesn't make any 1x3 rail pieces in dark red, or at all, and I couldn't find any 1x2 dark red rail pieces because it only comes in a handful of sets. So I did leave a small gap right here. And unfortunately, the one issue with the front door is that the hinge connection is rather fragile. As you can see, it was already starting to come off a little bit, but the connection for the hinges on the actual door isn't the greatest. Because of these plates on the side of the cockpit, I'm not able to put any sort of plate on the backside of these hinges to better reinforce them when it's closed in. And I know you're probably telling me to just modify these side plates, and I did try that, but nothing really looked right, and even when I modified it and I pushed the door back on, it wouldn't sit as flush as the original set. And it was very important to me throughout these mods that these doors sit as close to the main hull of the ship as possible. And after you play with the door a few times, you'll kind of learn how to handle it to avoid it falling off, but I did want to make it clear going in that this front door isn't perfect. But a door that is perfect is the back door, and I'm incredibly happy with how this turned out. And the back door is mostly the same from the original set, just not as long. Like I said earlier, all the clear tiles and the white stripes are in the exact same spot as the original set, so the exterior look hasn't really changed a whole lot. I did have to remove the 1x2 white rail piece above this stripe here to make space for these dark red ones since they got pushed back, but other than that, this door is pretty much identical. But despite it being so similar to the original set, this back door went through so many variations to finally get it to work. And it's all because of this tall Technic bar going right up and down the middle of the gunship. And this Technic bar is very important because it keeps the entire gunship together and keeps the backside from falling apart, but it was getting in the way every time I tried to figure out where to put these hinge pieces. And I eventually found a spot for both the hinges to go, but if they went anywhere else, this door would sit just slightly off the gunship. But now that we've covered the outside of these doors, let's finally open them both up so we can see our increased minifigure access. And your minifigure access is only a tiny bit better than the original set. We'll do a side-by-side comparison in a second, but you do have a few more studs of space, and you can even shift this front door up and out of the way to make it a little bit easier. And looking at the original set side by side with my modded version, you can see on the original set the door comes to the second stud of this plate here, whereas my door opens up to about 2 studs further back. Like I said, it's only a little bit, but it certainly helps, and now your gunship looks much more accurate. And what if I told you I actually built a second version of this door that opens up much wider to give you the best access to your minifigure space without ruining the exterior look at all? Well, if you follow me on Instagram, you would know that was true. When I was building this mod, I couldn't decide which version of the door I liked better, so I had you guys vote on it, with the obvious winner being the door that we've seen throughout this video. So let's quickly take a look at the loser of that vote and see which version of the door is actually better. And it's actually really easy to swap from this version of the door to version 2. All you're going to need is this 5 stud long Technic bar from the original set. But you still will have to follow my PDF building instructions for version 1 because it is a slight modification on this design. And in order to make version 2, we're going to go ahead and take this back door and then take it off its pins. And taking a look at the inside of the door, let's go ahead and pop off this dark red 1x6 plate up top. And now we're just going to move this Technic plate over by 1 stud and then move this 1x1 in its place. And make sure you put this 1x6 back on top. Now we'll go back to the gunship. And on the gunship itself, we won't have to move around any pieces, we're just going to have to take off this assembly here. And then we'll replace it with this 5 stud long bar from the original set. And once that's in place, go ahead and put your doors back on. And now that we put that 5 stud long Technic bar on the inside, this back door opens much wider, and now you have much easier access to your entire interior space. This back door opens a little further back and much wider now. You can pretty much fit your whole hand through that interior space. And despite the back door opening up at such a wide angle now, this back door still works just fine. But I don't think this version is canon accurate because this back door is sitting at such an angle. And this might get a little confusing, but in episode 2, it looks like the doors of the gunship open up at an angle like we saw with version 2. But then in some clips of the Clone Wars, it looks like the doors open perfectly straight back and parallel to the main ship, like version 1. So whether version 2 is canon accurate remains to be seen, but it's definitely my favorite of the two, despite it losing the vote. And as always, I do have PDF building instructions for all these mods, plus an extra parts file if you'd like to order all the extra parts easily, available on my Patreon page right now. Let me know what you guys thought of my 2-door mod down in the comments below. I know the front door isn't perfect with a little bit of fragility, but I'm sure some brighter minds in the community are going to figure out a fix for that really quickly. And let me know which version of these mods you're planning on putting on your gunship, version 1 or version 2. I'm personally a version 2 guy. Despite it losing the vote, this minifigure access is just unparalleled, so that's probably what I'm going to leave on my gunship going forward. But let me know which one you're doing down below. And if you have any other alternate build or mod suggestions that you'd like me to do, especially with these new September 1st sets coming out, drop those down below as well. And other than that, I'll see you guys next time. Peace, fellas.